Chapter 1. How Candide was raised in a fine castle, and how he was chased from it. In Westphalia, in the castle of Baron Thundertentrunk, there lived a young boy whom nature had endowed with the sweetest disposition. His face was a reflection of his soul. His judgment was fairly straightforward, and his mind of the simplest. It is for this reason, I believe, that he was named Candide. The old servants at the castle suspected that he was the son of the Baron's sister, and a good and honest gentleman of those parts whom the young lady did not wish to marry, as he could claim only 71 heroic quarterings of noble lineage, the rest of his family having been lost to the ravages of time. The Baron was one of the most powerful lords of Westphalia, for his castle had windows and a door. His great hall was even adorned with a tapestry. All the dogs from his farmyards were rounded up into a hunting pack whenever the need arose, and his grooms acted as his hunting whips. The vicar of the village served as his private almoner. Everyone called the Baron Your Grace, and laughed at his stories. The Baroness, whose weight of some 350 pounds had made her a figure of considerable importance, carried out the honors of the household with a dignity that made her even more respectable. Her daughter, Cunegonde, 17 years of age, had a flushed complexion and was fresh, fat, and piquant. The Baron's son seemed in every respect worthy of his father. Pangloss, the tutor, was the oracle of the house, and young Candide followed his lessons with all the good faith of his age and character. Pangloss taught metaphysico-theologico-cosmo-idiotology. He could demonstrate quite admirably that there was no effect without a cause, and that in this best of all possible worlds, his Grace the Baron's castle was the finest of castles, and her Grace the Baroness the best of all possible baronesses. "It has been demonstrated," Pangloss used to say, "that things cannot be otherwise, for as everything has been made for a purpose, everything is necessarily made for the best purpose. Note that noses were made to bear spectacles, and hence we have spectacles. Legs were obviously instituted in order to wear breeches, and hence we have breeches. Stones were formed to be quarried and used to build castles, and hence his Grace has a very fine castle. The greatest baron of the province must also be the best housed, and as pigs have been made to be eaten, we eat pork all year round. Consequently, those who propose that all is well are talking nonsense. They should say that all is the best." Candide listened attentively, and believed innocently, for he found Mademoiselle Cunegonde extremely beautiful, even if he had never summoned up the courage to tell her so. He concluded that after the good fortune of being born Baron Thundertentrunk, the second degree of good fortune was to be Mademoiselle Cunegonde, and the third to see her every day, and the fourth to hear Dr. Pangloss, the greatest philosopher in all the province, and consequently the world. One day Cunegonde was walking near the castle in a small wood that was called the park, when she saw Dr. Pangloss in the underbrush giving a lesson in experimental physics to her mother's chambermaid, a pretty and obedient brunette. As Mademoiselle Cunegonde had a great aptitude for science, she watched with bated breath the repeated experiments to which she was witness. She perceived with great clarity the doctor's sufficient reason, the effects and their causes, and returned to the castle quite excited, deep in thought and filled with a desire to be learned, reflecting that she could well be young Candide's sufficient reason, and that he could also be hers. As she was returning to the castle, she happened upon Candide and blushed. Candide blushed too. She greeted him in a faltering voice, and Candide spoke to her without knowing what he was saying. The following day after dinner, as everyone left the table, Cunegonde and Candide encountered each other behind a screen. Cunegonde dropped her handkerchief. Candide picked it up. She innocently took his hand, and the young man innocently kissed hers with exceptional vivacity, feeling, and grace. Their lips met, their eyes flashed, their knees trembled, and their hands strayed. Baron Thunderton Trunk walked past the screen and, observing this cause and effect, chased Candide from the castle with hard kicks to his backside. Cunegonde fainted, and the Baroness slapped her the instant she came to, and all was consternation in this finest and most charming of all possible castles. Chapter 2. What happened to Candide among the Bulgars? Chased from the terrestrial paradise, Candide wandered for a long time without knowing where he was going, weeping, raising his eyes to heaven, but turning them more often back to the most beautiful of castles, which contained the most beautiful of young baronesses. He lay down to sleep without dinner between two furrows in a field. Snow fell in large snowflakes. Candide, frozen through, dragged himself penniless and dying of hunger and exhaustion to the neighboring town of Vanderburghof Trabach Didorf. He stopped with heavy heart outside a tavern door. Two men dressed in blue noticed him. "Comrade," one said to the other, "here is a well-built young man of the required height." They approached Candide and very civilly asked him to dine with them. "You do me great honor, gentlemen," Candide replied with a charming modesty, "but I have no money with which to pay my share." "Ah, sir," one of the men in blue replied, "a man of your build and merit need not pay a thing. Aren't you 5 feet 5 inches tall?" "Yes, gentlemen, that is my height," Candide replied with a bow. "Oh, sir, sit down at the table. Not only will we pay for your meal, but we cannot abide that a man like you lacks money. Men were made to help one another." "You are right," Candide said. "That is what Dr. Pangloss always told me, and I can see that everything is for the best." They begged him to accept a few coins. He took them and started to write out a promissory note, but they adamantly refused, and they all sat down to dinner. "Are you devoted to—" "Oh, yes," Candide immediately replied. "I am devoted to Mademoiselle Cunegonde." "No, we meant, are you devoted to the King of the Bulgars?" one of the gentlemen asked. "Not in the least. I have never laid eyes on him," Candide replied. "How can that be? He is the most charming of kings. We must drink to his health." "Oh, gladly, gentlemen," and he drank. "That's enough," they said. "You are now the support to the prop, the defender, the hero of the Burgess. For fortune is made, and your glory assured." Candide's feet were immediately put in irons, and he was taken to the regiment. He was ordered to right face, left face, present arms, order arms, take aim, fire, double his pace, and was given 30 strokes of the rod. The following day he did the exercise a little less badly, and only gotten 20 strokes. The day after, only 10, and was viewed by his comrades as a prodigy. Candide was astounded. He could not yet understand what made him a hero. One fine spring day he took it into his head to go off, walking straight ahead, believing it to be the privilege of mankind, as of animals, to make use of their legs at will. He had not gone 2 leagues when 4 other heroes, 6 feet tall, caught up with him, tied him up, and threw him into a dungeon. He was asked by the court-martial if he preferred being flogged 36 times by the entire regiment, or having 12 bullets shot into his brain all at once. There was no point in his arguing that man's will is free, and that he wanted neither the one punishment nor the other. He had to choose. He decided, by virtue of the divine gift known as freedom of choice, to run the gauntlet 36 times. He endured 2 runs. The regiment was composed of 2,000 men. They came to 4,000 strokes of the rod, which exposed every muscle and nerve from the nape of his neck to his bottom. As he was about to begin his third run, Candide, unable to take any more, begged them to show mercy and grant him the favor of riddling his brain instead. The favor was granted. He was blindfolded and made to kneel. At the moment the king of the Bulgars passed by and inquired what the culprit's crime had been. And as the king was a man of great genius, he understood from everything he heard about Candide that he was a young metaphysician who was blissfully ignorant of the ways of the world, and pardoned him with a clemency that will be praised in all the newspapers and throughout the ages. A worthy surgeon healed Candide in 3 weeks with ointments decreed by Discordius. Some of his skin had already grown back, and when the king of the Bulgars declared war on the king of the Avars, Candide could walk again.